In the busy city of New York, inside the famous United Nations building, a very quiet and secret meeting allegedly took place. The date was February 12, 2008. This was not a normal meeting with official announcements and press conferences. Instead, it was held off the record, meaning nothing said was meant for public knowledge. According to a diplomatic source who later shared details, attendees were told to wear their regular clothes, not military uniforms or formal diplomatic suits. This was done so that if news of the meeting ever leaked out, the governments involved could deny that it was an official gathering. The topic of this hushed conversation was something that has fascinated and frightened people for many decades: unidentified flying objects, or UFOs. The reason for this secret assembly was a growing sense of alarm among several powerful countries. They had noticed a significant increase in the number of UFO sightings around the world. These were not just blurry lights seen by people in their backyards. They were credible reports, often from military pilots and radar operators, describing objects that moved in ways that our best technology cannot explain. Nations like Russia were reportedly very anxious about these events. The meeting was intended to be a briefing, a way for different countries to share what they knew and to decide on a common approach. It was a moment where the world's governments quietly admitted to each other that something strange was happening in our skies, and they needed to talk about it. The atmosphere of the meeting was described as highly unusual and tense. It was a rare occasion where diplomatic rivals came together to discuss a topic that transcended typical earthly politics of borders and economies. The source who revealed the meeting's existence claimed that the United States, under the Bush administration, had some officials who were worried about being excluded from these important discussions. This suggests a complex web of international politics playing out behind the scenes, all centered on the UFO phenomenon. The goal was to create a calm, unified front and prevent any single nation from panicking or acting alone, which could create global instability if the sightings continued to increase and become more public. This event from 2008 serves as a fascinating starting point for understanding how governments have grappled with the UFO issue in recent times. It shows that long before the official reports and public hearings we see today, there were serious, high-level conversations happening in secret. The need for such secrecy highlights how sensitive and potentially disruptive the topic of UFOs is considered by those in power. It was a sign that governments were taking the matter far more seriously than their public statements would suggest, setting the stage for a long and complicated process of discovery and, possibly, disclosure that continues to unfold even to this day, more than a decade and a half later. The primary reason for the concern that led to the 2008 UN meeting was a simple but profound problem. Governments were losing control of their own airspace. All over the world, military and civilian radar systems were detecting unknown objects. These objects, often called unidentified anomalous phenomena or UAPs by officials today, were performing maneuvers that defied our known laws of physics. They could accelerate to incredible speeds in an instant, make sharp turns without slowing down, and disappear from radar screens completely. For any nation, protecting its borders is a top priority. The presence of unknown craft that could enter and leave a country's airspace without permission was a major national security threat, and no one knew who was controlling them or what their intentions were. This worry was not just about a potential military threat from another country. The technology being witnessed was far beyond anything known to be possessed by the United States, Russia, China, or any other world power. This led to the unnerving conclusion that these objects might not be from Earth at all. If that were true, it would mean humanity was facing a situation for which it was completely unprepared. The governments at the UN meeting were worried about the potential for chaos if this information became public without a careful plan. They feared widespread panic, the collapse of economies, and the breakdown of social order if people suddenly learned that a non-human intelligence with superior technology was operating freely on our planet. The source who reported on the meeting explained that different nations had different concerns. For example, Russia was said to be extremely anxious, perhaps because of the number or nature of sightings over its vast territory. Meanwhile, some political groups in the United States, described as neocons, were allegedly concerned that they were being kept out of the loop on this critical issue, showing that even within a single government, there can be divisions and secrecy surrounding the topic of UFOs. The goal of the meeting was to create a unified strategy. It was an attempt to make sure all major world powers were on the same page, preventing any one nation from making a rash decision that could affect the entire world. Ultimately, the core of their worry was the unknown. When a military faces a threat, they study it to understand its capabilities and weaknesses. But with UFOs, there was almost nothing to study. The objects appeared and disappeared at will, leaving behind more questions than answers. Were they a direct threat? Were they just observing? Were they a prelude to something bigger? The governments had no answers, and this uncertainty was the most unsettling part. The secret UN meeting was a quiet admission of this shared vulnerability, a moment when the world's most powerful nations acknowledged that they were facing a phenomenon that they did not understand and could not control. One of the most startling claims to come from the secret 2008 UN meeting was a specific prediction about the future. The diplomatic source who leaked information about the event stated that the participants discussed a timeline for revealing the truth about UFOs to the public. According to this source, there was a plan in place for a gradual release of information that would culminate in an official disclosure by the year 2013. This was not just a vague hope. It was presented as a target date. The idea was that by 2013, the world would be ready to formally acknowledge that we are not alone in the universe, and that extraterrestrial visitors were real. This was a monumental prediction that suggested a major shift in human history was just 5 years away. The reason for setting a future date like 2013 was tied to the belief that the visitors themselves were not hostile. The source claimed that the working group managing this process believed the ethically oriented extraterrestrials posed no military threat to humanity. Their presence was seen as something that needed to be managed carefully to avoid social disruption, not a potential invasion that required a military defense. The 2013 timeline was therefore seen as a deadline for preparing humanity psychologically and socially for this new reality. It was an ambitious plan to guide the entire planet through what would be the most profound revelation in its history, all within a carefully controlled and scheduled framework. This prediction was part of a larger strategy. The source suggested that a secret international working group possibly connected to the UN was already managing this process. Their job was to oversee the slow acclimation of the public. This meant gradually introducing more information and evidence into the public sphere through various channels. The goal was to make the idea of extraterrestrial life less shocking and more acceptable over time. The 2013 prediction was the endpoint of this planned campaign. It was the moment when the curtain would finally be pulled back, and the official truth as the governments understood it would be shared with all the citizens of the world. Of course, a prediction of this magnitude carried enormous weight. It implied that governments not only knew that UFOs were real and extraterrestrial, but they were also in some form of communication, or had a deep enough understanding of the visitors' intentions to plan for a peaceful introduction. The idea of a specific year for disclosure created a sense of anticipation among those in the UFO research community who learned of the rumor. It suggested that the long-awaited moment of truth was no longer a distant dream, but a scheduled event. The world, whether it knew it or not, was supposedly on a countdown to a revelation that would change everything. The plan described by the source from the 2008 UN meeting was not to simply hold a press conference one day and announce that aliens are real. The officials involved believed that such a sudden revelation would be too much for society to handle. Instead, they favored a strategy of slow, gradual information release. This process is often called acclimation, which means helping people get used to a new idea or situation over time. The thinking was that by slowly introducing more evidence and discussion about UFOs into the public domain, the final official announcement would feel less like a shocking surprise, and more like the logical conclusion to a long-developing story. This would, in theory, minimize panic and social disruption. This gradual process was expected to involve several key steps. One step would be an increase in media coverage of UFOs. More documentaries, news reports, and serious discussions on television would help to normalize the topic. Another step would involve the slow release of previously secret technologies. The source specifically mentioned the disclosure of secret anti-gravity technologies, which are believed by some to be the propulsion system used in UFOs. By showing the world that humans were also developing this kind of advanced technology, it might make the existence of extraterrestrial craft seem less alien and more understandable. The entire process was designed to be a carefully managed public relations campaign on a global scale. This idea of a slow acclimation process is something that many observers in the UFO community believe has been happening for years. They point to the increasing number of credible witnesses, like military pilots and government officials, who are now willing to speak publicly about their experiences. They also highlight the official release of military videos showing UAPs, such as the famous Tic Tac video. To these observers, these events are not random. They are part of the deliberate, slow-drip campaign that was allegedly discussed back in 2008. The goal is to gently raise public awareness and acceptance, paving the way for a bigger revelation in the future. Another interesting part of this alleged plan was the idea of globalization itself playing a role. The source speculated that the global trend of creating international bodies and agreements was partly an effort to create a single, unified entity for planet Earth. This one world government structure would then be able to represent all of humanity when dealing with a larger galactic community, such as a galactic federation type of council. This suggests that the plan for disclosure was not just about releasing information, but also about restructuring human society to prepare for our entry into a larger cosmic neighborhood. It was a long-term vision for humanity's future, guided from behind the scenes. A major part of the discussion at the 2008 meeting, and really in the thinking behind the slow disclosure plan, was this deep concern about how the public would react to the truth. Governments were genuinely worried that the confirmation of extraterrestrial life would, shatter people's fundamental beliefs about the world. This includes religious beliefs, our understanding of science, and our sense of humanity's place in the universe. For centuries, most human societies have been built on the idea that we are the most intelligent beings, at the center of our own story. The knowledge that we are not alone and honestly, maybe not even very advanced, could trigger a pretty profound identity crisis on a global scale. This concern is not new. In fact, it was formally studied for NASA way back in 1961, in what is known as the Brookings Report. This report considered the possible consequences of discovering intelligent life beyond Earth. It actually warned that some societies might disintegrate. It suggested that religious fundamentalists, who believe humans are a unique creation of God, might have a very difficult time accepting the news. The report even noted that scientists themselves could be deeply shaken, since their disciplines would be faced with phenomena that they just couldn't immediately explain. The source from the 2008 meeting referenced these long-held fears, even mentioning the shocking possibility of a rise in suicides, as some people's worldviews are completely destroyed. The fear was not just about individual psychological reactions, it was also about social stability. How would our political and economic systems function? If an extraterrestrial civilization has technology that can provide limitless clean energy, what happens to our global economy, which is based on oil and other finite resources? If they have cures for all our diseases, what happens to our healthcare and pharmaceutical industries? These are not small questions. The revelation of advanced alien technology could, completely upend the way our world works. Governments were worried that this could lead to economic collapse and widespread social unrest as old systems become obsolete overnight. Because of these deep-seated fears, the strategy of a slow, controlled release of information seemed like the safest option. The goal was to give people, institutions, and industries time to adjust. By gradually introducing new concepts and evidence, society could slowly evolve its worldview rather than having it shattered in an instant. This careful management was seen as essential to navigating the transition from our current reality to a new one, where humanity is part of a larger, more complex universe. The caution displayed by officials shows just how seriously they considered the potential for society to break under the weight of such an extraordinary truth. The prediction that 2013 would be the year of official disclosure created a lot of excitement and speculation, but, as we now know, it did not happen. The year 2013 came and went without any government in the world making a formal announcement about contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. There was no global press conference, no speech from the United Nations, and no official confirmation that the UFOs seen in our skies were alien spacecraft. From the perspective of official statements, nothing had changed. The world continued on as it always had, and the big revelation that was supposedly planned in secret never occurred. For many, this was proof that the original source's information was wrong or misinterpreted. However, this does not mean that nothing happened after 2008. While the dramatic disclosure event did not take place, the years that followed saw a significant change in the conversation around UFOs. The process of acclimation that the source described seemed to continue, whether it was intentional or not. In December 2017, the New York Times published a bombshell story that revealed the existence of a secret Pentagon program called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, or AATIP. This article, which was featured on the front page, treated the subject of UFOs with a seriousness rarely seen in mainstream media. It was a major turning point that brought the topic out of the shadows and into the light of credible public discussion. Following the 2017 revelations, the slow drip of information became a steady stream. The Pentagon officially declassified and released several videos taken by Navy pilots that showed UAPs performing incredible maneuvers. These videos, which had been circulating online for years, were now confirmed as authentic by the United States Department of Defense. This was a huge step. For the first time, the government was not just secretly studying UFOs, it was openly admitting that these were real, unidentified objects that its best pilots and sensor systems had recorded. This was not the full disclosure predicted for 2013, but it was a form of disclosure nonetheless. So, while the 2013 prediction failed to come true in the way it was described, the period after 2008 did see a fundamental shift. The topic of UFOs moved from the realm of fringe conspiracy theories to a legitimate issue of national security and scientific inquiry. High-ranking government officials, senators, and former presidents began to speak openly about the phenomenon. This gradual change in tone and transparency aligns with the idea of a slow acclimation process. Perhaps the 2013 date was an initial goal that proved too ambitious. Or maybe the plan itself evolved. Either way, the journey towards a new understanding of UFOs had clearly begun, even if it was not following the original secret schedule. Fast forward to today, the year 2025. The conversation about UFOs, now officially called UAPs, is very different from how it was in 2008. We no longer have to rely on anonymous sources leaking information about secret meetings. Instead, the United States government, particularly the Pentagon, has created official bodies to investigate the phenomenon and report their findings to the public. The main office responsible for this task is the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO. Its job is to collect and analyze all reports of UAPs from across the United States military and intelligence communities. This represents a historic level of official engagement with a topic that was once treated as a complete taboo. The official stance of the United States government, as of the most recent reports from late 2024 and early 2025, is a carefully worded one. In its public statements and reports to Congress, AARO has stated that it has found no verifiable evidence of extraterrestrial beings, activity, or technology. This is a very important statement. It means that after investigating hundreds of cases, the government's official position is that they have not found proof of aliens. This directly contradicts the claims and hopes of many who believe that our planet is being visited. The government is not saying that aliens do not exist, but it is saying that they have not found any evidence to support that conclusion in the UAP data they have analyzed. So what are all the objects that people, including military pilots, are seeing in the sky? According to AARO, the vast majority of UAP reports turn out to have very ordinary explanations. Many sightings are misidentifications of common objects like weather balloons, commercial drones, birds, or even airborne clutter like plastic bags. A very frequent source of confusion in recent years has been Elon Musk's Starlink satellite constellations. These long chains of bright lights moving across the night sky are often reported as UAPs by people who are not familiar with them. The official message is that most of what is reported as strange can be explained by conventional science and observation. Despite this official position, the government's interest has not faded. In fact, it has grown, but the focus has shifted. The main reason for the continued investigation is national security and air safety. Officials are concerned that some UAPs could be advanced surveillance technology from rival nations like China or Russia. They are also worried about the risk of mid-air collisions. For example, there was a notable recent incident under investigation involving a near miss between a commercial airliner and an unidentified cylindrical object off the coast of New York. For the Pentagon today, the UAP problem is less about searching for little green men, and more about protecting America's airspace from unknown and potentially hostile drones or other technologies. When we look closely at the numbers from the Pentagon's AARO, we get a more detailed picture of the situation. The office has received a very large number of UAP reports totaling 1,652 to date. In the period between May 2023 and June 2024 alone, 757 new reports were filed. This shows that sightings are not a rare occurrence. They are being reported frequently by military personnel. The challenge for AARO is to sort through this mountain of data and figure out what is important and what is not. It is a massive task that requires careful and methodical analysis to separate the strange from the ordinary, which is what the office has been trying to do with these hundreds of cases. Out of the 757 new reports from that one-year period, AARO has been able to resolve many of them. About 50 cases were officially closed and identified as everyday items, such as balloons or drones. Another 243 cases are still pending review, but the office believes they are also likely to be common objects. However, a very large number of cases, 444 of them, were archived because there was not enough data to make any conclusion. This is a key problem in UAP investigation. Many sightings are too brief, or the sensor data is too poor to allow for a proper analysis. This leaves a large portion of reports in a state of uncertainty, neither explained nor unexplained. This is where things get truly interesting. While most cases are either explained or lack data, a small number remain that are genuinely puzzling. According to a CNN report on the latest findings, 21 cases from the recent batch remain unexplained and are described as interesting. These are the cases that cannot be resolved as ordinary objects, and that display characteristics that are not understood by current scientific or intelligence standards. These 21 cases represent the core of the modern UAP mystery. They are the credible reports, often with good data from multiple sensors, that show objects behaving in truly anomalous ways. AARO has stated that no cases have been attributed to foreign adversaries, which makes these unexplained cases even more mysterious. This data dilemma highlights the challenge that governments face. On the one hand, they can correctly state that there is no verifiable evidence of extraterrestrial technology because they cannot prove what these 21 objects are. On the other hand, they have a small but persistent set of high-quality cases that they cannot explain by any conventional means. This creates a tension between public statements and the reality of the data. This is why former military officers and members of Congress continue to push for greater transparency. They argue that even if the origin is unknown, the existence of objects with such advanced capabilities operating in our airspace is a matter of public interest and safety. Looking to the future, the way people and governments respond to strange things in the sky will likely continue to evolve. The era of complete secrecy and denial is over. We have entered a new phase of open, albeit cautious, investigation. Governments led by the United States have established official channels for reporting and analyzing UAPs. This structured approach is likely to become the new normal. Instead of dismissing reports, military and civilian authorities will be expected to collect data and investigate them seriously. This focus on data-driven analysis is a positive step, as it moves the topic away from speculation and towards a more scientific and evidence-based discussion. The public's role in this new era is also changing. With the rise of smartphones and a greater awareness of the UAP issue, more people are watching the skies and recording what they see. While many of these sightings will have ordinary explanations, a vigilant public can act as a global network of sensors. The challenge will be to create systems that can effectively collect and filter this public data to find the truly valuable reports. Education will be key. As people become more familiar with common sources of misidentification, like Starlink satellites and drones, the quality of public reporting will improve, helping investigators focus on the most genuinely anomalous events. Ultimately, the future of the UAP conversation will likely follow two parallel paths. On one path, governments will continue their official investigations, primarily focused on national security. They will be looking for evidence of advanced technology from other countries and ensuring the safety of air travel. On the other path, the public, scientists, and researchers will continue to explore the more profound question, are we alone in the universe? The small number of truly unexplained cases, like the 21 interesting ones from AARO's recent report, will continue to fuel this search. These cases will push the boundaries of science and challenge us to consider possibilities beyond our current understanding. The journey that began with whispers in a secret United Nations meeting in 2008 has led us to a place of unprecedented openness. While the dramatic disclosure predicted for 2013 never happened, we are living through a form of slow, unfolding revelation. The final destination of this journey is still unknown. Whether the answer to the UAP mystery is extraterrestrial, a hidden human technology, or something else entirely, our approach to it has matured. By continuing to look up, to ask questions, and to demand transparent investigation, we are slowly but surely preparing ourselves to navigate the skies of tomorrow and to confront whatever truths they may hold for humanity.